Three, two, one.
Hey, sports fans out there. Welcome to our podcast today. I'm Eric Johnson, Coach EJ, the brand.
And I'm Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. EJ, what do we got going for today?
We have a special person that we're going to collaborate with today and talk a little bit about African Americans and really youth sports, baseball, from youth all the way up to professional baseball. And I think it's going to be a great topic today, Aaron. I'm looking forward to it. We have our friend out there in Florida, John Paul Reed, with Pure Momentum Sports, and been an innovator out there trying to, help youth out there participate in baseball, especially African Americans. We're in Black History Month, Aaron, and I tell you, man, I'm out there watching these kids playing a tournament last weekend, and it's good to see more young Black people playing baseball, and I like that. So great to have him here today, Aaron. What you got on it, man?
Yeah, I'm glad to have John Paul. He's a listener, and we like to have him as a guest. So I'm glad that he wanted to participate. And he's someone who's in the trenches, and that's what we wanted to do. We didn't want to just have these two old heads up here talking. Someone who's also out there, besides us, doing the good work and working with these kids and seeing the challenges that that these athletes and their parents face, especially those who want to participate in baseball. And so I think we're going to have a real fruitful conversation here. JP, just real quick, tell us a little bit about your organization, where you're located, and some of the things that you're doing with the kids.
We're located in Sanford, Florida, Central Florida, basically, Orlando area. Disney, everybody knows Disney.
Yeah.
Yep.
We sunny Florida. The weather's good here year round, so training is a way of life down here. You know what I mean? Like it's 90. It was 90 degrees yesterday. You know what I mean?
Man,
so
jealous.
What's the weather like where you guys are?
Man, it's like 40s, 50s, cold.
Oh,
hey, any of you guys who know me, once it gets under 70, it's like Arctic as far as I'm concerned.
And that's I think a perception, because you assume all California is warm. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just a misconception.
Yeah, no, we're in the Bay Area. It's not as warm as Southern Cal.
Yeah, right there by. Yep. I've been there a few times. It does get cold, so yeah, it's 90 degrees here, so it's gonna be pretty much like that until September.
jealous.
Killing me.
But it is also very, very hot and very humid. So
I'll take that.
It's uncomfortable for a little while, but it rains every day, rainy season. So, but as far as us, we're located there, so it makes it easy for us to kind of like create a niche, right? So what we do is we focus on development and exposure for student athletes. One part development, one part exposure, one part mentorship, right? Pure itself is just kind of like an idea that I've had to kind of a mindset of going at things or approaching things, right? Once you get going, momentum kind of carries itself, but we got to get going, right? And sometimes like when you're in some of these, disadvantaged areas, I'm from Mississippi originally, so I can understand kids coming up with less. And sometimes you don't know where to start. You don't know how to begin. You don't have that direction. Mm-hmm. So it's about just getting going. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then we'll see your effort. And that's one thing I want to stop and say that I appreciate for you guys, because like being a young African-American entrepreneur, ex-baseball player, all of those things, older guys haven't been as like outgoing. So, for you guys to like take the time out to even acknowledge and say, okay, maybe we can share some of our platform. It says a lot about you guys. You get what I'm saying? So I appreciate it. Our company appreciates it. The kids here appreciate it. And I mean that sincerely. But that's our focus, man. We operate a student athlete resource center. So it's a facility, right? Mm-hmm. But we do different things. We house different specializations, right? We have tutoring. We do like skills development and training, evaluation and assessment. We have some behavioral people that come in. We have different things to offer, and because of it, we decided to now operate as an after-school program. So we're licensed through DCF. So that gives us the ability to go to schools, pick kids up. So we're an after-school program. Most people look at it as a daycare, but we only do school-age kids, and we specialize in athletes. Right.
Nice.
And the whole idea behind it was giving kids the opportunity, and we also do high school kids advanced training monthlies, your traditional academy stuff, team, But to me, I don't want to talk about that. That's just basic. You know what I mean? I want to talk about like how you take a time where these kids have no interference, 3 to 6. You get them in an environment, you structure it, you get them homework, you get them a snack, and then you get them regimented. They come in 15, 20 minutes of running, T-work, basketball players get shots up. We even got a football jugs machine. Whatever these kids, we don't cookie cut it, and we don't necessarily try to take on a million kids.
Right.
The goal is for kids in our program to we're a resource. So our goal is to be here with our kids through their matriculation through high school. We want kids that want to play in college, right?
Nice.
Ideas, you give us a commitment, and we're going to get you results. You know what I mean? Because we're going to be consistent. We're going to stick to a process. And we've had tremendous success. We've moved kids from Mississippi, where I'm from, to the Florida area through and now into college. We've done a lot, but the biggest thing is that now we've got a program that kind of like gives kids who necessarily couldn't access the system before from an economic standpoint, the opportunity, because we had a certification as a licensed care provider to allow their parents to come in and take access of after school resources. You know what I mean? That's how we do it. Medicaid, different programs that we can access, and we figured out a way to access.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because one of the big burning questions is, in terms of African Americans in the state of African Americans in baseball, is always everyone looks at the numbers first,
right?
And
Right.
you're looking at, hey, participation was maybe 20%, I think, in Major League Baseball. In the 60s, 70s, now it's down to 8%.
Yes, sir.
And it was down, I think, as low as 3 or 4% a few years ago. So actually, from what I understand, we're actually seeing a resurgence. Now, it may not be as much as we'd like, but there is, some spark of hey, maybe things are starting to build momentum, just like your program. Last year there were 4 out of the top 5 draft picks African Americans. So, hopefully that's just not a blip on the radar screen, but it's, maybe the start of a trend. And, that's what we want to talk about is what are some of the barriers to participation in this sport that we all love, access, those sorts of things. And that's kind of what we want to, let's open up the discussion with that is, hey, what are some of the I think the obvious barriers that, especially for younger athletes who want to get into the sport, and again, it's not just African-American communities, it could be any community.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of it, I think, and I guess I'm going to tip my hand here, has to do with economics of the sport.
It does. Point blank, you said it, Aaron. It's economics all day. And I don't care what anybody says. It's access based on money. As we know in travel baseball, it's all about access and money. And I think here in the Bay Area, there are programs that are trying to open it up to all minorities that don't have access, and, I could throw out 1,000 names out there. I think one right now, Aaron, you and I know, is Tyson Ross.
Yeah.
Okay. And what he's doing at Loyal to the Soil. And what he's trying to do is bring access, ability to get training, come for a day or two and have some instruction, appreciate the game, get the mentorship. We need to bring that to the forefront. And the whole thing I see is that there's not enough Black coaches out there. I'm going to tell you, because I'm out there in the trenches. And having Tyson, having top tier backyard boys, some of those guys out there running around, it's good because kids, young kids might already see that and go, hey, I can do that. And that's what we want them to see. I can do that. And hopefully the economics aren't going to stop us from allowing that to happen, whether it's scholarship programs, foundations, et cetera, those need to be accessed by not the best players that are minorities, but players that are above average. I see above average to average players not getting the same opportunities as those high level players. Okay. And I think you need to talk about that a little bit, because that's what deters those players from playing baseball, is that. And I think that's important.
Man, you guys are spot on from my perspective. And I think the first thing you got to look at, Aaron, is what perspective are we gauging it from, right? Like there's somebody's trying to call in on me, or so there's a barrier at every perspective. You know what I mean? From economic perspective, there's a barrier right there at, and just the flat out dollar per dollar you have to spend out to
Yes.
to be a part of it, which is, in my opinion, because it's a thing. It's a skill sport. I mean, you have to learn it. I mean, you can develop the skill over time. I look at it like two ways, right? I'm gonna give it a brief pivot, like how I break the game down. When it comes to development, you have two different mindsets, right? You have the Dominican mindset, right, where we train, we focus on that solely, right? We're not really concerned with the personal development, right? We just want to develop the skill, and then if you have value at a certain age as a player, then we'll teach you this personal stuff, right? Investment strategy. And then you had the American system where we have what I call an evaluation system, meaning we evaluate the problems. We know what's wrong with the players, so they play so many games, but we don't take time to address it. And so what happens is there's a premium put on the ability to address it, right? And how you address it and when you address it. So, and then even inside of that, you got guys that train that slow kids down because they want to make money. Like there's a whole lot of, like, it's a web to this, right? So when you're looking at each one of these different things, there's a barrier. There's a barrier there because, hey, be honest, some of our parents, it's 18 hours a weekend. Like, let's look at that. It's 18 hours a weekend. And we used to playing football, and it's one game on a Saturday. And then we got the rest of our time. So just the time, what I've seen is the type of mindset that parents have to navigate it, right? You got to be really, really you have to be able to sacrifice as a parent, because your weekends, you're going to be at the ballpark. I got a kid right now that's a freshman at a local high school. He's starting as a freshman, Eli Harrison. Been training since he was like 8 years old, right? He's been through the program. And this kid, this weekend, I'm going to give you guys this week, he played, first varsity game he played was Monday. He struck out 3 times. Batted 6th, right? Struck out 3 times. He played Tuesday, struck out 2 times, flew out to the wall. And then the third day, yesterday, he went 2 for 4, right? Now, I'm going to give this perspective. On top of that week he had, he saw maybe 5 fastballs all week. You know what I mean? So to the fact that our kids are just going to be actually coached, play different. And like, they're going to be like, everyone is 3 kids on his team that are black, right? And these kids all are good players. And I watched the game Monday night, and those kids saw a combination of 7 fastballs all night. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now I watched the rest of the lineup, and the pitchers arms would have fell off. You know what I mean? If they had to throw that many curveballs. So how we even look at the fact that the players themselves are going to be treated differently. You know what I mean? But I just think there's so many barriers, but the number one would definitely be economics. Like the fact that it's an extra $300 a month to invest and play the sport. You know what I mean? To even get in. So
yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, and even just kind of at the base level, again, I go back to my era where there wasn't formal instruction. Your dad bought you a mitt out of a bin at, Thrifty or someplace, Kmart, because it wasn't really sporting goods stores back then. And you put it on your handlebars and you wrote, I remember getting new balls, and you just went out and you played street ball and you played wiffle ball and you played all, some of these other stick ball derivatives of baseball that introduced the sport to kids. And just from a play standpoint. And I think that's where you grab kids. is first make it just play, make it fun. And that's not out there anymore, you know. And again, we've talked about, you know, the lack of parks and recs, at least in California,
You structured.
where you used to be able to play a rec league, you know, at your local parks and rec. So I think the absence of those sorts of things kind of, you know, the kids don't get as much exposure to it, and they don't get as much of the good exposure to it, because you got to remember, once you start putting a dollar sign on it and you put a uniform on, or it's instruction, then that becomes pressure. And that for a lot of kids, and that doesn't necessarily allow them to kind of organically experience the game and appreciate it, and actually first make it their own.
True.
And then be able to take that skill set, that flash, that flair, and take it to the next level. And so I think that's kind of, you know, if we're talking about just getting, you know, kids exposed, and I think that's the biggest thing first, is get them exposed and engaged. I think that's the first step in helping, you know, the lack of participation problem. And from there, as you get more athletes in, then we can talk about exposure and stars and, you know, that sort of thing. But again, just kind of going back from, you know, my era, that was kind of how baseball caught me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I would say to counter that, right? Not to just to be the devil's advocate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just that, yes, that's the overall goal, but it isn't as easy to do now as it was back then. Meaning,
right.
like,
no, I understand.
There are certain things that are not in place consistently for the kid to get introduced in that
Right.
kind of natural, relaxed, unpressured way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of was like, hey, dad, pick this up. Hey, try this out. Just keep this with you, you know?
Right.
And then gravitate to it. That's the way it should be. But for most of these kids, like most of the kids that I deal with, I just started coaching 11U team. I kind of fell back since before COVID and kind of was working on the business side of it. And I fell out. I stopped coaching, but now I'm coaching 11U team this year, right? The makeup of that team, I would say 60% of the kids on that team, we're a minority team. 60% of those kids are single moms.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So moms are them like they OG moms though. They're not weak. You know what I'm saying? They do it, but at the same time, there's still a certain part of it that's not quite there. And so for some kids, that's totally absent. Some kids are, you know, they go gravitate to football because it's easier, it's cheaper. You can grab a group of them. You know what I mean? They all kind of like grab each other. So the football like has a hole because it's the thing that you could. It's the investment with the best return for the amount it costs to play. You dig what I mean?
Yeah, same thing with basketball. Same thing with basketball. Minimal investment.
Football is a little different because more kids can play.
Right.
Like it gives opportunity. Basketball, man, you got to be a really good basketball player nowadays. Even playing, like you got to be pretty good. You know, like it's not as many just free falling opportunities now. And I think football makes it easier because I know guys on all sides of it. I know guys that are the little league coaches, you know, that pick all of the kids up from school, taking you know what I'm saying? So it's guys that do it, but baseball has some challenges. Like, and then too, the sport is like a sport that you have to play to learn. You know what I mean? Like playing stickball, when I start, I'm doing a spring break camp. The first thing the kids are gonna do defensively is bare hand drills. You know what I mean? Like when you play stickball, when you play you know, you learn how to use your hands. Your hand-eye coordination develops. You know, kids like to do things that they're successful at. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like my daughter, right? She started to play baseball this year. She's 5 years old. And my wife put her in baseball. She was like, yeah, I put her in baseball. I was like, okay, you put her in T-ball. She's like, no, I put her in coach pitch. I'm like, she's 5 years old. You know? Like, okay, we're going to do it. But her development isn't there because we haven't played catch a lot because I didn't want to hit her. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That would have been a negative. She would have associated something negative with that. So my whole first 3 or 4 years, I just didn't want her to get hit with the ball like that. You know? Now she can hit and she can throw and she can run. So, but she doesn't have somebody, the other kid's not going to have somebody there to make sure they don't have that negative experience. You know, you can hit with ball the first time out there, you're out of there. You know what I'm saying? It's because you can't see how it won't keep happening. And that's another part of that being comfort, having that comfort to play. You know what I mean? Like our society is just not as empathetic anymore. You know what I mean? You know, we don't have as many of us coaching. You know, to EJ's point, you know, we don't have as many of us coaching. Like out here, man, it's very few guys that run their own show because the thing is, it's, you know how it is. It's travel ball. You're gonna coach a bunch of games. They're gonna give you 2 teams. You're gonna be doing 3 tournaments a month. You know, at least that's how it is down here. You know, you're gonna go out there and you're not gonna really get a chance. You're gonna tie your time up with the team stuff. You can't really make your money training. So even the coaches are put under like put under like in a box. You know what I mean? So there's so many things that keep that from happening. But I do think that the programs that are doing that need to be highlighted. They need to be commended, and they all need to come to the table so people can share resources, because there's so many things that like that you can access to take advantage of, to have a program where kids who are in your area can come in and get exposed to that and other things. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, and that's what we need to focus on, because at the end of the day, okay, this is how I look at the economic part, right? The economics is the biggest issue, because it's skilled labor. You have to have somebody who knows how to play the game to teach the game, right? Because like you're not gonna have a very good program if kids not catching the ball, throwing the ball, right? So you got to put some money into the teaching, the instructor part, and that is what the cost that's the cost that really hurts. That and where you're going to do it, your facility costs. You get what I'm saying? You got transportation costs. You got to get the kids where they want to be, because parents are not going to do it when they get off work. You know, most of these parents are working. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like they're not doing like they're not like, I'm blessed. I just kind of
Right.
like I grinded till I got it. You know, but it was a struggle. But for these other parents that are like working regular jobs and, you know, hustling out here, man, when they get off work and they got 1 kid, 2 kids, they're going home. They got to start the process. I got a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. You know what I'm saying? It's a process. So you know you got to get them into bed. So being able to commit to these things is tough. You know, you're committing to. My daughter has practice this week, Thursday and Friday night. You know, I'm out here at the facility. I got to shut down, leave a little early, get over there to get to her practice. You know what I mean? So it's when you get inside of it, it sets the parents up to not be able to commit. And then from the lack of commitment, the kid can't get access to it. So it just becomes what's the easiest thing to get access to that's going to be beneficial to the person, to the kid. And football and these other basketball, they're easier because the parent doesn't have to come out of pocket as much. You don't have as big a responsibility on the time, and you can feel good that your kid get an opportunity. Now, from a baseball perspective, we have to have people who have facilities, indoor facilities, 10,000 square feet. We
Yep.
do have to have access to classroom space that's out of the element so they can take a breath, or, you know, take a break. You know, they need bathrooms. They need, you know, transfer van to get them to and from different things to the field. So it becomes economics on a lot of different levels. And so the barrier to like even some of these other guys expanding what they're doing is, it's not their energy or their effort. It's the reality that quality work is hard to find. You know what I'm saying? And it costs. And it costs, right? And then at the end of the day, you still got to put yourself in a position where financially it's worth the time for you. So it's tough when you don't have a lot of people, a lot of resources there for you to go tap into and say, okay, I need a 10,000 square foot building. Okay, you can get that. Okay, I need a van, 15 passenger van. Okay, I need to take some classes through DCF. It's going to take me about, 1,500. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like these things that give you access to the system, right?
Right.
I went through that. You know, I took 2,000 hours, 200 hours of class coursework. My wife did it. You know what I'm saying? We found a van and haggled the price. You know, we saved up. We built the clientele. Like, it's a process. And once you get to the point where you're on that stage where you're that, you know, the African American coach, you need resources because your heart is good. You know what I'm saying? You out there giving the time, but you need things to show yourself on the same level. You do, because it's all a numbers game when you get to that level. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
those big organizations have bigger teams because they got more trophies. But from the beginning, I'm gonna tell you how I look at it. They had $10,000 of capital to front the uniforms, to, you know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Get the ball rolling. Right.
You
Right.
because it's still management of a business,
Right.
and that be your expertise. You're a ball player, but nobody's there to manage it. And going through 3 or 4 different uniform people, just the little things inside. So there's so many layers to the game now. So my philosophy is like guys like you. I know I'm committed to it. And that's why I took my 11U team. Like I could have coached anybody. I got kids in my program that are multicultural, right? So it's not just that, but when it came to me, I was like, you know what, man, I want to impact a group of kids right now that are minority. I want to get that contribution to it. And it takes a lot of people moving in the same direction. And it takes resources, you know what I mean? It does. It takes a lot. But there are resources and things you can tap into to where a lot of it could get, covered. And it's not something that's like me. I looked up one day, the pandemic hit us and we had to kind of pivot, you know. And then once that pivot happened, I realized like, okay, parents wouldn't pay me $300 a month anymore for unlimited lessons and the group lessons, but they pay $75 a week for after school care. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So because they gotta have somebody pick their kid up after school. You dig what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that was opportunity to kind of start putting something in place that's consistent. And then by the time the parent get there, the kid homework done, they're ready to go. So it's
Mhm.
quick. The parent almost like the kid goes out there, does well. People asking where they play, where they learn, because they've been with these kids and they've seen these kids not do well, but it's a process, an organic process, but it's a way where you can sustain it, because the tough thing about baseball is, how these travel ball parents are. As soon as they start playing well, you don't see them. They stop training, they playing, and then all of a sudden they start doing bad. They come back. You know, it's
Well,
just,
we see that all the time.
and I'm not saying the kid doesn't need it. I'm not saying that it should be money based, but I'm saying that there should be a system in place for the kid to maintain development. When a kid comes back to you, you always have to start back over and fix something. You're wasting time.
Yeah.
You're wasting elemental time. And so those things matter too. Like for me, like, outside of the kids that I just kind of come in and we just help from our nonprofit side, there's certain things that have to be in place for a kid to come into our program, because I want to have a success rate. Now, it's not about, as EJ said, the best kids. It's not about best kids at all. It's just about understanding that when you come in here, we got a standard, right? We're going to work. We're going to have a good attitude. We're going to keep it amongst ourselves. We're not going to be telling your parents. We're building young men and young women, but it also takes consistency. Our program is 3 to 5 days a week because it's after school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you can kind of create the environment you need, but it takes resources. It took us a couple of years to kind of get everything, stabilized and, everything to learn the system. But it's definitely worth it. And I think people should look at not just that, but other ways. Like there's some opportunities in the telehealth area to kind of come in and offer opportunities for kids to get help too, from a Medicaid side, if kids have access to that. Because I'm speaking from those perspectives, because those are income-based programs. You know what I mean? And those income-based programs, as kids that aren't on income-based programs, they gonna get the help. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But the kids that are on those programs have no access. They have zero opportunity, zero exposure, because they just can't even if their parent had the money, they couldn't get them there. You know what I'm saying? Because they're
Right.
working.
Because they're working.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it goes back to this, and Aaron and I say this a lot, JP. And I've said this for years. I've been in this game now for 30 years with Aaron. And the one thing we say is it starts at home. And I will always say this, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It starts at home about parenting, about telling your kids what's right and what's wrong, being consistent, showing up. And it starts there. I think our problem is based on home, being at home and what's right and what's wrong. And I think from there, we can get these young people to where they need to be. Parenting is huge. And Aaron and I always said this about when we were growing up, we were neighborhood kids. We went out and we played together. And we don't have the access anymore because of, one is that everybody's worried about their kid getting kidnapped or whatever. And we knew when the lights came on, it's time to go home, you know, and that's different now. And I think the plight of us playing baseball is based on, there's no after school programs. Well, there's no school programs. Like when I was growing up, and Aaron can attest to this because we're about the same age, is that, you know, we had PE, we had physical fitness, we had all that stuff that exposed us to sport, to baseball, to softball, to all these things. And that's how we found out the love of the game. And then, you know, you go get your glove, like he was talking about. I got mine at the Oakland A's game and glove day. And you bring it to school and you brought your ball and you played catch after school with your buddy on the blacktop. Okay. That's missing now. And that's why we don't have a love for the game anymore, because those programs are gone. And now, like you said, JP, and Aaron probably would attest to this, it's pay to play. You know, it's pay to play now. And you know, that's we need to rethink about all that stuff again.
Yeah. I think I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah. I think, you know, you're really talking, because again, I'm looking globally. I'm not just, I think the answer might be a multi-pronged approach, because you've got access issues for rural kids.
Yep.
You know, we got access issues and economic issues for urban kids and even suburban kids. You just can't assume that a kid lives in the suburbs and he's going to have access, you know, to baseball. So I think
absolutely not, because their parents are working too. I mean,
exactly.
You know what I mean?
And so it's economics, like you said, it's accessibility, which to me is, you know, logistics. And so, you know, it's probably going to be 3 different answers for 3 different environments. And so, you know, again, my thing is, I just want to see kids playing baseball. It's not about, you know, are they going to get a scholarship? Are they going to, you know, go to the pros? My thing is, I want to see more African-American kids playing baseball, because I think once they play the sport, like any other sport, and they learn to appreciate it, that other stuff follows. So to me, it's like, how do we get just that basic,
Well, I tell you know,
first step going?
I think, you know, honestly, and I want to make 2 points real quick. One, maybe this is a whole nother conversation, but the whole concept of now how they basically outsource, you know, our talent to the Dominican Republic. You know what I'm saying? Like, because at the end of the day, like if they put resources into it, meaning in the major leagues, they put resources into it in the inner city, the kids would develop. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm saying there's a whole nother leg of the spider that says, okay, they got mad that, you know, they had to start paying all this money for their talent. You know what I mean? They didn't need it to be the bulk of the talent, but they wanted to make up a certain amount of the talent. And they just started, basically, the players that were playing in the 70s are no longer. Now they just get those guys from the Dominican Republic. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Or foreign places. So that's a concept in itself, how it is a very, very calculated kind of decision. You know what I mean? I would love to hear you guys' opinion on it one day, about like Curt Flood and his role in that, and how now they're like, you know what, man, we're not going to be put in a position where the talent like in the NBA, like in the NFL, basically, where the talent has such a stranglehold on the game that, and I think that has, and I'm saying that to say that I think that has affected the growth rate of African, you know, of our participation to a degree, because look at the resources that the major leagues themselves invest in Dominican academies and these things. What if a third of that was put into running which is my next point, a rec park in all inner cities? Like, there's no rec parks.
Right.
Like,
And that's what I'm getting at. That's
Yeah.
what I'm getting at. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
And so those things are kind of like interconnected because it's only okay. So it's either programs like mine that are after school that get you, or there's a rec park that's close to the house where parents can get to.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And so the way I look at it is the major leagues going over to the third world country and putting whole facilities where these kids live and they live on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I get exactly what you're saying because if they can outsource it and they can control the talent pool and they can control their costs on that and they can control ultimately, that ultimate dollar that they're going to pay for that athlete, they're going to do it. It's a business. I mean, not to just bash Major League Baseball because they are doing some programs. They've got the RBI program. They've got
absolutely.
But on a broader scale, maybe those dollars should be better spent at the community level than just at these laser pointed talent development level.
Exactly.
That's my would be my preference.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, spread those dollars out further to touch more athletes.
Everybody's opportunity, but I just think that look, I played at the rec park when I was a kid. It was probably 5 minutes from the house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did too.
All-star, the whole nine. You know what I mean? Home runs, presented on the mound, snow cones. It was the greatest experience. But I remember at 13, I went to play travel ball. And I just remember how starkly different they were. And both were fun, but one just didn't give me that security. You know what I mean? Right? Where I was, she could drop me off and come back and get me. I've been playing all day. So if you don't have baseball near where these kids live, and travel ball takes that out of it because everything is like a movement type of thing, an event. You got to have an event to get every kid there. You know what I mean? Like it's just a whole thing, man. And it's unfortunate because there are a lot of kids that are missing out on the opportunity because these rec parks are not flourishing. You know what I mean?
Well,
I mean, take it from a former park and rec director. That was my first job out of college, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and that stuff is non-existent.
It's non-existent now, and this is what happened in this industry, as I started in it. When you had travel ball teams, you had the best teams. You just had the best players playing somewhere. When I was growing up, it was Little League. Little League was where all the players played. It didn't cost as much. People could play Little League. If you couldn't afford it, Little League had the ability to help you afford it. So it was accessible to everybody. Okay. Second thing, when travel ball started, that stopped. Because now it's okay, I'm gonna take the best players from the league, or I'm gonna take the best players from this organization, go make a team. Then the average player says, I want to go, or the average father says, I want to go make my own team. So travel ball became just watered down. And it has been. Now you have all these teams, and it's all about, hey, can you pay the fee to play in the tournament? And people don't have that. People don't have all that anymore. They don't have that. So those things have changed the game, baseball as we know it today, on every level. Because at Major League Baseball, they said, oh, travel ball, let's go make our own travel ball. Let's go take a facility and make it over here and build these players here to build at the higher level. The problem is down the grassroots. How do we get kids back on the field to play for the love of the game instead of for the dollar of the game? And how can we as adults help facilitate that and make it accessible for all people? Because like Aaron, I agree with you. It is a holistic, it's a global thing, from the suburbs to the country to the urban, suburbia, everywhere. There needs to be access for our kids to be able to play the game. And that's where we really have to build this on and figure out how do we do that. And, you know, programs like yours, JP, is a start of it. You know, you're providing that for those kids in Central Florida that may not have access to what we deem travel ball. Travel ball is just travel ball. By the way, it's just baseball. I don't think it should be called travel. It's just baseball at this point. But you know, again, it goes back to that.
You know, I really think, you know, the whole concept, you know, that these parents, you know, pretty much put themselves in a position where they're manipulated. You know, you just look at the totality of it. I agree with you. I think the system itself has just been created. It's a money grab. You know what I mean? Like it all turns, and the kids are the ones left in the wing. I think another thing that would really kind of improve activity is more player accessibility. You know what I mean? Like I have to feel like the guys the guys that didn't make as much were more accessible.
Yeah. And that,
You know,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I just feel that way. I feel that if players were more accessible, if they came and they did events and they tried to, if they did it, it would mean so much to the kids. They would now find a hero, you know,
Right.
like they would
Right.
find that they look up to. Like I would check Griffey's stats every night. You know what I'm saying? You know, it was just one of those things. And I just don't think kids have that idol in baseball because, you know, and some
Right.
of it is maybe Barry Bonds wasn't the most accessible guy. You know, I'm not saying he has to be or he should be or he should be made to, but I just think it when guys sign autographs, it means something. You know what I mean? When guys go out of their way to help people and kids, it means something. And I think that maybe the money affects how their time. Not that they won't do it, but
Right.
just that the time is so structured and rigid now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off.
I just think that kind of affects it also. You know, like the basketball players are really accessible. You know what I mean? So, but that's another point that I wanted to raise.
No, and that was something I wanted to actually go into as well as, you know, I think there needs to be changes on the promotion of the sport. And like you said, you know, again, going back to my frame of reference, I grew up with heroes, you know. I wanted to be Gary Templeton. And if I was on the mound, I wanted to be J.R. Richard, you know. You know what I'm saying? Or Vida Blue, you know, those sorts of things. Right. Never wanted to be Hank Aaron, even though my name is Aaron. I wasn't big on home runs, but no, I think there needs to be promotion of the sport at all levels. And I know the onus is kind of put on Major League Baseball to do that. And I think, yeah, that's probably the biggest driver and has the most horsepower. And hopefully with these young guys who are now coming up, baseball looks at that as an opportunity and will do that. Because again, they're like the NFL. It all comes down to dollars. And if they can put more black butts in the seats and eyes on the TV, they're probably gonna do it. If it's, you know, it's in their best interest just from a dollars and cents. Because it's an uncaptured audience. But, you know, again, there also needs to be that same promotion going on at the high school and college levels. I mean, really, how much college level baseball promotion do you see? Unless you're an enthusiast, you don't see anything on it.
No, you don't see
zero.
Yeah.
Zero. Is zero. ESPN has put out the College World Series, but it comes down to this. These college leagues have their own network TVs, network contracts. I mean, who sees that? I mean, who sees SEC baseball or Pac-12 baseball? If you don't know about it, you don't see it, period. Yep. You don't see it. People don't know about that, by the way. Oh, I didn't know they had a network.
Jefferson Pilot.
The Big 12 had a network, but it's not accessible to everyone.
And aren't those pay channels in most cases?
Those are all pay channels. They're not accessible.
Jefferson Pilot. It always came on. I will tell you this honestly, being a kid from Mississippi that came up, like a couple of things really kind of resonated with me. Watching the March Madness, that
Right.
that that
Mhm.
different.
Yes.
Watching
Yeah.
how the games went down in the players' last game, and then also watching those SEC baseball games on a Sunday. You know what I'm saying? That's usually when I used to catch them. Like watching these guys, that are going to play in the major leagues. It hit me because I started knowing those guys because
Yeah.
these guys from my
Right.
town, Jackson, that went to Ole Miss or Mississippi State,
Right.
other Miss. And it really resonated with me that, man, like when I started having success, I was like, man, I'm good as that guy. I struck him out. You know what I'm saying? Stephen Head, SEC Player of the Year. You know what I mean? So, and it's not accessible. It is 100% not. My mom, we just were in a better position, and I had access to it. But I had friends that didn't. You know,
Mhm.
so you're right. They all pay channels. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you talk about Major League Baseball only has 7.2% African American participation. College baseball is way less. We're talking, 3%, 2%.
Yeah.
It's
It's very, very, very low. It's kids. One of the best things that has happened was the draft last year. One is those kids were going to go to college, going to go to major colleges to play baseball if they weren't drafted. Now, young African American kids see that and say, hey, this kid was going to go and play in college too. No, I didn't know about college baseball. Oh, you can do that too. That now becomes a reality. And, college baseball, Major League Baseball could have played on that a little bit more and made that more accessible that way. So,
Well, I think one hopeful spot is, and you know me, I'm not big social media fan, but I think with social media, that can be a driving tool for athletes to just not wait on Major League Baseball and get their own selves out there. They're not naming, like in basketball, they're naming shoes after basketball players, and you don't see that in baseball. And there's not the familiarity because you don't see these guys with the frequency. But God, it just kills me. Someone like Mookie Betts.
oh, absolutely.
It's like the guy's a walking commercial,
The
and,
walking commercial.
and someone hasn't grabbed him up. We should be seeing him, selling aftershave and Old Spice, just like come on, Terry Crews.
What about
Or,
McCutcheon? His career is almost over. You know what I mean? Like Andrew McCutcheon was he's probably a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? He got an outside shot. So you're talking about guys, and Mookie's the same way, man. You're right.
Yeah.
But it's just also us, a lot of, and I think one big difference, and I was kind of discussing this with somebody else the other day, is now everything is more you do it yourself.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
so many more channels now for you, which is a good thing, but just like even 15 years ago, people weren't doing that. Like you had access to just put yourself out. So now I think the mindset is like you have to do so much more on your own that sometimes people just don't want to do it. Where it is opportunity, other people see it as I don't need to do that. What am I doing that for?
Yeah.
Like I think it's unfortunate because I agree with you. Like these kids are on this TikTok, they're on this Facebook, they're on this Instagram. And all you got to do is have somebody film a batting session, and that's one batting session would be 1 million. You could turn that into however many posts you wanted to. You know what I mean? Like just
right.
But some people just don't really see the need to do certain things. And it's like Deion. Like this is another point with Deion. Like it's rare that you see a guy in Deion's achievement level come down and coach.
Right.
Like to have that influence. So of course going to have an impact, but you just normally don't see it. So I think that the guy wants like the Mookie Betts who should put out all of the posts and all of this. He's just like, man, they paying me gazillion,
Yeah, I guess I mean, I get it. There's probably maybe a lack of incentive, but also maybe it's the structure of baseball itself, because baseball really prides itself on its culture and its tradition. And some of that smacks in the face of how, people of color like to play the game.
Yeah.
and so maybe there's some, there's some guide rails there that, baseball players maybe don't feel comfortable crossing over, wondering what the ramifications might be because, they clutched the pearls just because a guy did a bat flip, a couple years ago, and it's like, okay, do I offend? What is what I'm going to do if going to offend the wrong, the current,
because you got to stay
fan base, but it's at the expense of attracting the fan base that's culturally more responsive to what I do.
Right. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? It is, and that's a very, very good take on it. And just the box that guys have to fit in when they get there. You know what I mean? Just have to contemplate that. You know what I mean? Like, to be that aware of your movements, like to not be able to have a human and natural reaction to failure. You know what I mean? It's a lot, man. It's a lot. When you say that, it makes me think about a lot. You know what I mean?
And that kind of goes into some of what we talk about when we talk about the social barriers, not seeing people who are more like you, and those sorts of things where kids might might say, hey, you know what? I don't want to deal with all that. Because you know what? One of the things that we tell kids is, sometimes you got to cut your hair.
Yes.
You know what that means, in the Black community, that's part of, our expression. And even something like that, just to kind of, and I hate to say the word conform, but to make that path a little bit easier for you, you know what I'm saying? And for the baseball, kids are like, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to play football because they're going to let 9-inch dreads hang from my helmet. You know what I'm saying? Or basketball or something where I could do anything. And that's just one aspect of it. But still, that's that kind of thing that is going to make kids say, hey, you know what? I can't really be me.
If I don't,
then
I'm gonna
screw it. I ain't gonna play this sport.
I'll tell you where it really plays a part. I think that's another very valid point. The effect it has is on the masses, but the problem is college baseball sends mixed messages, right? Like, or baseball in general, because they accept it from some people on certain levels. But the people on the lower levels don't understand the terms in which it's accepted. You know what I mean? So they look at it like take it as a whole, take it or leave it type of bag. When it's like, okay, listen, when you going in, you want to present yourself uniformly to not have anything held against you, so you can go out there in fair shake. But once you start to accumulate leverage or standing, then you start to express yourself in other ways. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no one really looks at it like that. It's like, because I guess I've seen Tennessee, I've seen all of these SEC schools have, minority kids with dreads. So to a kid, it's like, but now to get into Arkansas State, the coach might not go for it. They might be more old school. Right. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And kids are completely turned off because they're like, oh man, they're not being fair. Right. Like some guys get to do it, some guys don't get to do it. Because each kid is in their own mind, they're immature. They're not as mature as they're gonna be. Right? So to make these silly conclusions without having guidance and direction. You know what I'm saying? Like easy. I had to cut my hair going in. I had, my senior year, I went through this thing, I grew braids, and then like, hey, coach said, hey man, got cut. I was like, all right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, whatever. So I wasn't attached to it, but it's like these kids are now starting to kind of like associate personality and, they're asserting themselves as a generation kind of like. And it's becoming like a tug of war. I see it with a lot of kids, especially down here in Florida, man. That's all you see. Like no one cuts their hair and brushes it anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when in Rome, right? But at the same time, I tell my guys, look, man, when I send a guy to a guy, he gonna come in and just blend in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't want people asking where you come from, like just get in there and show what you can do first.
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't You know, they let them believe what they want, and they think that, but it has a big effect.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm gonna say this, JP. When you made your decision to get rid of your braids, how, what conclusion did you get? Was that on yourself? Your mom talked to you? What?
it just was me like looking at it like I knew what my invested. I'm from Mississippi,
Right.
so what I mean by that is it's harder for me to forget where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? Just because of a lot of
Absolutely.
that associate with it, on top of what I experienced making it in and out. Just like you guys from where you're from, it's no different. But I knew my mom, I wasn't gonna have no conversation with my mom about my scholarship. You know what I'm saying? Like, were you talking to me about what? They told you gotta cut your hair or you don't get scholarship? Well, what's there to talk about? So, and I knew that, and that's how I thought, because like I wanted the opportunity out. You know what I'm saying? I wanted my shot, and I was in control of my shot. And it wasn't a talent, it wasn't this and that. They just said, "Hey, when you come in here, you gotta be clean cut." They didn't even hold it against me that I had braids. They just said, "Hey, when you come in here, we want you to, you know, we want you to, we need you to do like everybody else." And to be on the team, that made sense to me. Like, okay, you're on college team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So college coach wants me to, that's what I should do, you know? So, but I've dealt with kids. I had a kid, but I mean, this kid was tremendously talented. Kid ran a 6'4", 60 outfielder, switch hit, you know, kid just refused to cut his hair, ended up going to small JUCO in Mississippi, you know, and just never got pushed to develop, you know what I mean? And it's all because of this, like, I don't know, man. I can't relate to it. I'm not like personally attached to my hair, you
Hey,
know?
I'm gonna call it home training. I tell you, I go back to this. I'm old school. I'll tell you, being in a family, your parents have a major impact on it, whether it's a single parent or two parents.
Um,
And back
yeah.
to a lot of that sometimes. But sometimes maybe your single parent is not that good, and they need a mentor, and a mentor is huge.
Right.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
I mean, speaking of mentors, then we also got to look at what's the percentage of Black coaches, again, not just in Major League Baseball, but in probably, to me, the more critical areas of high school baseball and then college, because it seems to me that there's kind of this bottleneck at the collegiate level of head Black coaches. In other words, the funnel gets narrower as you go up versus getting wider.
Absolutely.
And, again, I don't know why that is. Every former player doesn't have to become a coach, but it just seems as though when you have more Black coaches, they're going to be able to attract those kids, like Coach Dion. He's going to attract kids from all walks of life, but he's also going to attract the all sorts of African American kids. And so I think when you don't have those coaches in some of those pivotal points, the kids can't really move on because, again, there still has to be that relatability factor. And
another great point. And I think my opinion on that is baseball is corporate. It's like corporate America.
mm-hmm.
Look at the actual movement inside of like this system. And I mean the system from like taking a kid who's got the opportunity, who's got talent, to like making $6 million in the draft, right? And then getting drafted, or not even that much, just getting drafted, right? To go, because you got to put the same time in as the kid that's get drafted in the 10th, 15th round, got to put the same time in as the first round draft pick. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no breaks as you go down the ladder, So there's this overwhelming like feeling of like, how do you survive that? You know what I mean? Like it's a very, very, very tough thing to kind of navigate. And it's tough on guys. It's tough because it's like being in an environment where you're up against it. You're the only person like you. Nothing is your favor unless you had somebody who played, or somebody in the organization that drafted you high. They want to change the swing, like from the playing the game perspective. And there's a bunch of bad narratives out there from players' perspective. You dig what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like You know, when you see like Dwight Goodson play basketball, you know, like, you know, there what was it? Not there, what was the man? The guy who's played for the Yankees. Daryl Strawberry's son playing basketball.
Oh,
You
Right.
know, that's something that's close to the game that's trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like there's something was there that drove that kid away. Right.
yeah,
And I think some of this stuff is there's not a good narrative around the experience that African Americans have when they play the game. You know, like
yeah,
Jack was how old when he passed? Like, come on, let's be honest. You know, let's look at the, the overall impact it has on the person. You know, just the experience and are the experiences. Man, I almost got me upset. I was watching something and Tim, what's the shortstop for the White Sox? Tim Anderson
Tim Anderson.
said something about it wasn't Joey Votto. I don't want to call the wrong guy's name, but some player made some kind of statement to him, man, and it was just really out of pocket.
Josh Donaldson.
Josh Donaldson, man. And it got me upset just having to understand how I have to maneuver and conduct myself and have to, and then you put me in a position where I have to even like get emotional about something like that. Like that's terrible of a person on that level to talk to you like that. And you know what I mean? Like, and that is a negative. Like I wouldn't want to experience that. You know what I mean? But it happens every day
yeah,
in that environment and other environments too. And I just think that sometimes like baseball, you assume, for a while you just assume that at the end of the day, there's going to be some negative political dealings with it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
No baseball comes with baggage.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
It's not. There's going to be some friction or some. It's not a completely unhostile environment. And and I guess kids pick up on that, and that's the rap that baseball probably
man.
has. Yeah.
And look, they pick it up on a little league. I'm gonna tell you some of the worst interactions I've seen have been at when I was playing travel ball at these tournaments. You know, you go to so many of them, you see some really, really bad, activity from, attitudes and activity from parents, coaches. Like it's bad sometimes. You know what I mean? And that drives kids away. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things and then kids don't get the opportunity. That's another thing. Like, kids not getting a chance to play, kid in rec ball, not getting a chance to play, don't develop, tries out for the high school team, but just doesn't make the high school team. You know what I mean? Like, it all matters, man. And no one is really focused on the totality of the problem. So a lot of it just kind of goes, we just push it past the radar like it's not important. But all of it matters. All of it matters. When you're talking about getting kids in the game, being healthy, developing, learning, and even if they don't play, finding a way to still love the game. Yeah, that's tough. It's hard for us. It's definitely hard for us. It's tough to navigate. You know what I mean? It's really tough to navigate. And there should be people out there like you guys that, create energy and talk around it, because a lot of the young guys, we don't know. We just play ball too. You know what I mean? We don't know. Like a lot of things that I've done, it's just because I knew there were guys like you guys out there. And I said, man, let me put my energy into it in a positive way and let's see how far I can get with it. Right. And you just kind of do it because you enjoy it, but you got that enjoyment out of it. Most kids now, when they start playing, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not it's out there, hey, let's go out.
Yeah. No. And those enticements don't seem to be as strong with baseball as they do with the other sports. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that's why we talked about this today.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't even really know how we're going to measure that progress, but
well, I think they're doing a lot of good things. Hank Aaron Invitation, what is it? The EDI down here in Florida, they do the breakthrough series. They're doing thing. I know some of the guys, Chip Lawrence, some of the other guys that are actually spearheading that. So it's a lot of great things being done. But those kids that are making it or breaking through, those kids who are already on track. Now it's about reaching back and affecting the haven't got on track yet. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, and I agree wholeheartedly with both, with everything you guys said today. And I am in the trenches, and I feel like, man, if people had this mindset, just the actual positive thought conversation on it, a lot would change. You know what I mean? But so many people are like submersed in it, and they can't really see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
So,
I think baseball sometimes, and not just baseball, but a lot of the youth sports nowadays puts parents and athletes in a survival mode.
mhm.
It's like, how can I just get through this? And so a lot of that other stuff kind of falls by the wayside. You just like trying to get to the edge of the pool before you drown.
For sure. Trying to keep up with the Joneses,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because it moves so fast and it's easy to get, caught up in a lot of things instead of being able to step back and take a look at, hey, what's the best thing for me as an athlete and as, and maybe as a family.
And I'll even say this just as a personal thing. Like my son's, he's 15 months, right? He picks up a bat, swings it a little bit. But, my mindset isn't I want him to play travel ball when he's 9 years old, 10 years old. You know what I mean? Me personally, like, I think the kids should develop and play different sports and be a kid and, figure out if that's what he want to spend his time doing. Like, it's a big commitment. You know what I mean? But I do think that it's good to be exposed to different things. So if you're 11, 12, 13 and you want to pick this up, it's something that you've invested in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we should start introducing things in that manner. So introduce lacrosse to a kid as a football kid. So when he's 13, 14, if you don't make the high school team, he can go and jump into something that he can still go and compete in. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
Putting that out. And I think that we need, specifically when you're looking at baseball, we need more Black guys on the field, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's just few and far between.
Yeah.
Like, because we relate to each other differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
A Black coach is going to think about, man, did this kid eat today? Or whatever the circumstances are. Did the kid just rush here and not really have time to gather himself? Like, because we've been that kid ripping and running, trying to make it there. So I think at the end of the day, we do need more coaches on the field and more trainers, you know what I mean? Guys that actually impact and interact with the kids themselves. Umpires too. I would like to see more Black umpires. But I think like everything else, we're on the path to doing it. It's just gradual progress. You know what I mean? And the fact that people like you, like me, want kids to keep playing, we're gonna keep pushing it forward. So that's really, at the end of the day, what everybody should kind of take from it is like, hey man, at the end of the day, let's just try to get one more person a day, like pull one more kid in. You know what I mean? Like let's just try to push it forward because it could be worse. You know what I mean? It could be way worse.
Well, there's a resurgence in Northern California baseball with we see more African American kids playing and more coaches on the field, being in the trenches out there watching it, and it's been a long time coming. So that's a positive thing, Aaron and JP, very positive. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I think we've got to put it to a wrap now. We probably got longer than we said we was going to keep you, man, but I'm sorry about that. But it's a great conversation.
I enjoyed it. I appreciate it. And like I said, anything I can do, I enjoyed it, man. I really get to sit down and kind of talk, so it was fun. It was really I enjoyed it a lot. Hope you guys have a good day and just kind of let me know what you guys need me to do.
No problem. Love having you.
Yeah.
All right.
And for all you guys out there who listened to us today, I want to thank John Paul Reed, number one, JP, as we know him. And if you want to check him out, check out puremomentumsports.com and see what he's doing out there in Central Florida. So really appreciate you coming out. And again, this is Coach EJ, known as The Brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the Source. We'll see you.